we dove into an issue that affects communities nationwide, and that's the rising cost of living and its role in escalating homelessness. As housing costs soar, wages have remained stagnant, leaving families struggling to make ends meet. The basic costs of rent, groceries, and healthcare are climbing, but paychecks aren't keeping up. Right now, millions of families are spending more than half of their income just on rent, with little left for essentials like food or other medical expenses. Homelessness doesn't usually happen overnight. It's often triggered by an unexpected change like job loss, illness, or an unaffordable rent hike. With no safety net, families can quickly find themselves without a home. In January 2024 alone, over 770,000 people experienced homelessness in the U.S. This isn't just a big city issue, small towns and the suburbs are feeling the impact as well. Later on, we will hear from Amy Price, the Director of Development at Community Homelessness Solutions, who will share insights on what's happening on the ground and what needs to change. But first, let's step back and explore the bigger picture, what's really driving this crisis, and did we get there.
To understand how rising costs are leading to more homelessness, we need to look at what's happening with the basics like rent, groceries, gas, and healthcare. Everything's going up except for people's paychecks. Over the past few years, wages have stayed mostly the same, but the cost of living keeps climbing. That gap is what's putting so many people at risk. Affordable housing is generally defined as housing on which the occupant is paying no more than 30% of gross income for housing costs, including utilities, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. But right now, millions of families are spending over 50% of what they earn just on rent. That doesn't leave much food, medical bills, or emergencies. One thing we all must realize is that most people don't become homeless overnight. It usually starts with one unexpected change, such as someone losing their job or their rent going too high. Suddenly they can't keep up, and with no safety net, they lose their home. And they don't get the support they need to be able to live on their own again, or get the support they need to be able to afford their housing. So that is why we need to figure out a better way for rent to go down, and also for wages to be higher so it could be affordable to live. Because California is still rising and not people's paycheck. According to the annual Homeless Assessment Report, or NIGHT, in January 2024, 7,771,480 people experience homelessness in the United States. This isn't just happening in big cities either. Small towns and suburbs are feeling the rising cost of living is a national issue, and the impact is everywhere, especially Monterey County, which has risen by 19% since 2022. I found, according to Homeless Report, that about 77% are experiencing homelessness that are unsheltered, and 81% are annually but are becoming unhoused because of the high cost of living. It seems to not get better because people are struggling to survive in Monterey County and other places in California. But we don't look at what people may be struggling with to become homeless because we have a bias that they are lazy, but we have to understand the mental aspect of why they become homeless because that plays a huge part in it. We see that. So in just a moment, we'll talk to Amy Price from Community Homeless Solutions. She's going to share what the crisis looks like up close and what her team is doing to help. Let's begin by telling us where you grew up and a little about yourself.
Right. My name is Amy Price. I'm the Director of Development for Community Homeless Solutions. I've been out in California for 2 years working on the issue of homelessness. Prior to that, I grew up in Austin, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas. I raised my kids there, and that's actually how I got started working with homelessness. I was a single working mom, driving my kids home from school, and we'd pass I remember the moment. We passed some guy with a sign saying, Hamburger Dreams. And my son was, like in fifth grade, and he's like, we need to get that guy a hamburger. And I was like, great. I'll turn around. He goes, wait, wait, we have to get his order. And my son made me pull over. He ran over, he got his order, came back. We drove through, we ordered food, and then my son got out of the car and sat down with the guy while he ate and chatted because he said he didn't want it to feel like a handout. He wanted this guy to feel seen. And so from that point forward, I've worked in the nonprofit sector for almost 40 years. And while homelessness is an issue across all nonprofit programming, it became something that really mattered to our family. And so I have worked in shelters. I raise money. Strictly speaking, my job is raising awareness and raising funding for the programming.
That's honestly amazing, especially for your son at such a young age to do that for someone.
There's always somebody who raises their hand and says, hey, if these people were hungry, I'd like you to explain this. I handed a guy an apple at an intersection the other day, and as I drove away, I saw him put it on the ground. If he was hungry, he'd eat that apple. I was like, yeah, except he probably can't. He probably can't because of his teeth. People who are experiencing homelessness have very little access
Mm.
to, health, mental health, dental health care. Most of the people that I have worked with personally through the years, I mean, they could no more bite into an apple than fly. And I was like, see, you are judging him without thinking this through.
Yeah, and it's not fair to judge someone just because, yes, they put it down because, like you said, they don't have that much teeth to bite into it. And I've seen people where they have lost a lot of teeth and they can barely, I'm sure they probably can barely even eat anything.
I would have trouble biting into an apple just because I'm older. So it's funny. I mean, every one of those people who asked that question is probably a decent human being. And if they saw me on the
Mm.
side of the road with a flat tire, would stop and help. But that doesn't mean that they're right about everything or that they don't have bias and judgment. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that homelessness has to deal with. Not just the facts, which are
Mm.
pretty horrifying, but bias and judgment. I heard one guy tell me one time, older man wearing the hat with all the pins, a veteran of Korean or Vietnam War. And he
Mm.
said it made him so mad to see homeless people out there pretending to be vets to try and drum up donations. And I was like, well, how
Mhm.
do you know they're pretending to be vets? He goes, because no veteran would ever wind up homeless. I was like, listen, I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here as a pop psychologist. I think the truth is you don't want to live in a world where that could be true. You are a
Mm.
veteran. You lost friends, you sacrificed things, and you don't want it to be true because if it could happen to that guy, it could happen to you. And that's terrifying.
That is honestly true. I've heard that even from people I know, like they'll be like, oh, like they can just go get a job, like they don't have to be homeless.
HUD, the Department of HUD, has defined homeless because HUD moves money out through the nation to help people who are homeless. So if I
Mhm.
want to apply for those funds and use them for our programming, I have to show that our clients are in fact homeless. And there's definitions. Um, and I don't think people realize quite how hard it is to get out of homelessness once you've fallen into it. I mean, I know that first off, in California, the cost of living is very, very high. There's almost 2 million households in California. They pay more than half of the household income for their rent. I do. That's called cost burden. You guess when somebody's homeless on a bus or an intersection because they have their stuff with them. So that's going to be a potential liability for them trying to find work. Then they're going to have to save up enough for utilities, deposits, rent, and be able to maintain that. And while the cost of housing has gone straight up, the minimum wage has been steady for a long, long, long time. That is, I think, loss of income is the number one reason people experience homelessness. And that could mean a lot of things. Uh, a partner died and they were the primary breadwinner. You aged out of being able to do certain work. You got sick and couldn't work. And once you're homeless, it is a very hard road back. I was going to say what we do at almost any nonprofit that's working with homelessness usually offers basic services. We have to establish identity. A lot of times people who've been homeless, somebody nicked their bag where they stowed it, or there was a flood and they just barely got out. So we don't even have ID. So we have to start with the basics. Name, get a birth certificate, get you an ID. Then we may discover that you're eligible for benefits if you were a veteran or over a certain age. Uh, we're trying to give you shelter, a safe place to sleep, while you talk to a case manager who's going to be doing everything in their power to figure out where you could manage to live that you could sustain.
What services do you offer at your program to help them?
Well, we have 5 different programs. We maintain 2 shelters for people who are experiencing homelessness. They're co-ed. You can come in, sleep, take showers, food is there, you have storage space, it's safe. And there's case managers, and they will help you find jobs. They will help you get ready to meet a potential landlord. We have housing navigators that spend all day on the phone pleading with landlords. The case managers are working with each individual to bring as much positivity to bear on the situation. And our goal is not to have people sleeping in a shelter. Our goal is to move them into housing. And we do. We moved 496 people into housing last year, out of 1,000 people served. And some people, it wasn't that we didn't move them into housing, it's that they're still with us. We're still sorting things out. We also have 2 domestic violence shelters.
Wow, that is amazing, especially how many people you've helped. Do you guys offer also like any like mental health services?
What a great thing to ask. We started a brand new program last year. We call it our wellness program. We hire some mental health care professionals. They do group and individual therapy and some substance use issue therapy. And they go to our shelters and do group work, appointments. What we have found is we hear a ton of positive feedback from our staff. They're like, Joe has been a problem client, always angry, yells at everybody, gotten, suspended twice because of his behavior. But after Joe started talking to somebody in the wellness program, his behavior moderated and it was easier to work with him. And in fact, now he's showing up to his case manager appointments. He's, doing what he needs to do.
Yeah, that is honestly very true because I feel like I've heard that bias before too, like, oh, they're doing this because they that's why they're homeless because they're doing this. Or and I'm just like, I feel like that can't really be the only reason because when I did my own research, I found that the main cause is because they have too much trauma that they use it as a cope, but then they can't really focus on trying to support themselves because they don't know how to deal with the trauma. Do you have anybody that has come through like really like stuck with you like throughout your 20 years there? Is there anybody that's really stuck with you?
You know, it's a dirty thing, but I mean, there's a bunch. But the one that surprised me the most, I don't know why. I just, he showed up at the shelter. He had fingernails out to here. So he took him and got a haircut. And then out of his own pocket, this baby social worker took him and got his nails trimmed and stuff. So the guy comes back and he looks completely different. Now he suddenly looks like Richard Dreyfuss. He just needed some help. Things had gone from bad to worse to really worse to really worse to dying. And so he came in because we had air conditioning. He got paired up with a social worker who was bound and determined to help him, willing to drive that guy to get his hair cut immediately. And there's no way anybody would have hired him the way he looked. He was like an extra in a horror movie. I mean, it wasn't just like a little bit of a fix, it was a complete recovery after a decade of living on the streets. Anybody can be helped.
Especially what you guys do is amazing. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing and the programs you guys provide is amazing.
And so my coworkers do amazing things. They show up every day. They deal with whatever nonsense they had to deal with, clean up messes that usually only a mom has to clean up. But it's part of the job because we understand with dignity and compassion and a little bit of humor, because sometimes you just have to laugh. This can happen to anybody, and we just want to help. So I'm very lucky that I work with people who are client facing and do such a great job. My job is mostly facing people like you, facing funders, the media, trying to generate enough revenue so that we can pay everybody to come to work, so that there's a dry towel after somebody gets their first shower in 6 months, so that there's, a pillow when there's a pillow. There's not usually a pillow in a shelter. The mats are just shaped with a little bump. But sometimes we feel a little rich or somebody donates pillows.
It can happen to anybody. It does not matter who you are. It doesn't matter what job you have. It can happen.
You guys chose this topic, so that was a good thing. You want to get information out there. Somebody will hear this and think, oh, I never thought of that. And maybe it'll open a heart and a mind. And enough of the hearts and minds get opened, we can deal with this. We really can. It's not an insurmountable problem. It's very obvious. It's very uncomfortable. It is not something that happened last week, last month. This has been, going on since Europeans landed in America. Something as simple as nodding, smiling, waving if you drive past.
Yes.
Make them feel like they have something worth living for. They're not garbage.
I'm glad you guys are continuing to do this, and I'm very inspired. And I'm going to try to do what you're saying. Try to smile, wave, because they are people, and I try to do that. I try to smile at them.
Well, I think sometimes even the best people look away because they sense that person's in distress and you want to give them a bit of privacy. I mean, it could even be motivated
That's how
by
I see it.
kindness.
Yeah.
But man, that eye contact, that human interaction, that's so powerful.
Mm-hmm. It is very
Well,
powerful.
you know where I am. If you have any follow-up questions or anything, it's important work. And I'm very proud of everybody who does it and everybody who chooses to shine a light on it. So thank y'all.
Thank you. That was Amy Price, our guest speaker. And our podcast again was Housing and Homelessness. And we appreciate everybody listening. And I hope everyone has a really great day and be kind to others.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to take a moment to reflect on what we've heard. We've learned that homelessness isn't just about losing a home, but it's often about losing stability, support, and dignity. As Amy Price reminded us, it can happen to anyone. A lost job, an unexpected illness, or a rent increase can push someone over the edge. But just as important, we've seen that with the right support, people can rebuild their lives. So what can we do? First, let's challenge the stereotypes. Instead of looking away, offer a smile, a nod, or a kind word. Small acts of human connection matter more than we realize. Second, consider supporting local organizations like Community Homeless Solutions, whether that's through donations, volunteering, or simply spreading the word about their work. And third, get informed and stay engaged. Learn about the housing issues in your own community, and when you can, use your voice to advocate for solutions like affordable housing and living wages. Thank you to everyone who contributed to our project, especially our wonderful guest, Amy Price from Community Homeless Solutions in Monterey County, and our professor. Remember, everyone deserves the chance to have a safe place to call home, and no one should be judged for their housing situation. Thanks to organizations like Amy's, people experiencing homelessness have the support they need to rebuild their lives and move towards stable, permanent housing. Thank you.